All right, and we are live. So we're just going to wait for a few people to join in and start watching, and then we'll go ahead and get started to kick off our hashtag TQIF lineup of the Tex-Trek podcast, followed by Starfleet Boy After Dark. Because you have nothing better to do on a Friday night during a pandemic.
This is
or
when
any other day of the.
This is when we've got them by the balls.
Yeah, it's not like there's any new TV shows or anything. They're having to put Star Trek Discovery on CBS just to have something to fill airtime.
It's pretty notable.
Yeah, I saw that one coming.
Folks who've been holding out got what they wanted.
Yeah, it only took 3 years, but
how long will it take before they try to edit down Game of Thrones and stick that on broadcast television?
Hey,
how desperate will they have to be?
Well, are they going to keep the F-bomb when they run it on CBS?
No, they can't. That'd be illegal. That's against the what is it? The FCC.
Yeah.
They have to. CBS has to adhere to that. Okay.
So
well,
will they just bleep it? I guess.
No, they would just cut the scene. Or they'll redub it.
I bet they'll redub it.
Actually, I know that they've shot an alternative take of that.
That's true.
They actually used it in the promos before the show premiered.
She's going to be like, "That's pretty cocksucking cool."
That's just like, I think the actual line is she just says, "This is so cool." I heard it. I heard it in the promos before. I remember wondering, what is so cool?
That's a bit of a shame, but you know.
We have a couple of people watching, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'm Fatheree.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 112th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And tonight, Dave and Brian and I have joined forces again to discuss Star Trek Lower Decks Season 1, Episode 4, Moist Vessel. Episode written by Ann Kim and directed by Barry J. Kelly. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off by just going around the room and saying what our opening statement is, our general thoughts on this episode, and then we'll go into more detail. I'll go ahead and kick things off, and then I'll pass it to Brian. But I did not like this episode as much as the other ones. I still had a good time with it. But overall, I found the jokes didn't land and were kind of unclever, especially compared to last week. And I did feel like in episode 3, the show was firing on all cylinders or flying on all thrusters or whatever you want to call it. But so it did feel like a little bit of a drop off. But where I had a good time this week was with the mother-daughter stuff with Mariner and Captain Freeman. And I'm hoping to see more of that. But like I said, some of the jokes didn't land, and I wish they had been a little bit more clever. I'll point those out when we get to them. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brian. What do you think about this one?
We've only 4 episodes in, but at this point, I'm ready to say that this is an average episode of Lower Decks. I liked it better than the first one, but not as much as the second or the third. I didn't come away with a profound idea or comment or anything particularly, but I laughed. I liked the character development. So yeah, it was fine.
I liked it exactly as much as I've liked every previous episode, which is to say, somewhere middling to didn't like it.
Well, you liked the first episode. It went downhill after that, right?
Yeah, okay. I guess that first one doesn't count. I was high on cartoony animation. I was a little sad that the Tellarite guy, which I know we're going to talk more about it, but didn't he have like an English accent or something like that?
I didn't read it as that, but
It just didn't feel very Tellarite to me.
Captain Durango.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I thought he
Weird
was
name
almost,
too.
Lots
I
of
thought he was
planets
too
have in
Tellarite.
England.
Yeah, that is true. I thought he was too Tellarite-ish.
You did?
Yeah.
He wasn't serving up the insults as I like to see it.
I think for Dave, I think like the golden example of Tellarites is Journey to Babel.
I mean, it's kind of hard to beat the one that actually created them, but I don't know that's
just
fair.
one character. I'm just letting you know because I know you haven't seen like some of the episodes of Enterprise that have Tellarites, but they do come in like a few different stripes.
Right.
They're all still kind of like argumentative assholes.
Right. That's the thing I like best about them. Weirdly, some of my Tellarite stuff was based on a novel that had just a chapter in it that had a sort of notable supporting character on a mining colony where Kirk was working after the Enterprise had been destroyed because weird time travel-y stuff. And she had a sort of argumentative flirtation with her that I found it very endearing. Anyway, but keeping it to the episode, I do agree with you, Fatheree, that the mother-daughter stuff was nice to see, and I was somewhat amused by the ins and outs of the the Ascension subplot.
Yes, which I think
and I've jotted down a few. I've jotted down a few things that were like bits that I thought were particularly funny. Which may be a little bit more than in one of the previous episodes. So, like I said, pretty average for me. But then again, it hasn't, except for that first episode, I haven't been super on board.
You've been underwhelmed. You've been consistently underwhelmed.
Yes. That's the poll quote I would like for them to use from me. Consistently underwhelmed.
Well, then. I'm just going to read the synopsis for this episode from Memory Alpha, and then I'll expand on that with spoilers to give our recap of the episode. Captain Freeman seeks the ultimate payback after Mariner blatantly disrespects her in front of the crew. A well-meaning Tendi accidentally messes up a lieutenant's attempt at spiritual ascension and tries to make it right. And I'll just expand on that, but Mariner is promoted and given more work to do and more responsibilities, and some vessels get moist and start unstably terraforming, and it forces mother and daughter to work together to save not one but two ships.
Are we gonna find out that there's some secret, more hidden meaning about getting wet in this episode? Yeah. Some dirty subplot that I haven't quite picked up on yet.
I have to admit, I was a little didn't get the title once I got done with it. I was
I don't get it either.
Okay, all right.
Well, I mean, I get it. There's a liquid that it touches a ship, a vessel, and chaos ensues because it begins to terraform.
It sounds like it's I haven't Googled it, but it sounds like the kind of thing that would actually be some kind of terminology and
like a Schrodinger cat or a spooky action.
or somebody who's in an anatomy term, oh yes, this is we have to close off the moist vessel before we can proceed. So maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe one of us should have Googled it. Y'all keep talking while I Google it.
I don't think there's much meaning to this, but I could be wrong. I didn't know that the word moist is triggering to some people until Dave, you actually pointed that out to me.
I don't think I've ever quite heard it described as triggering per se, but I do know it's kind of just seen as a kind of a gross, icky word. That's all.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty essential word. How do you describe if you want a moist cake or a moist?
Right. Well, it used to be purely the domain of Betty Crocker from the 60s to the 90s, I'm guessing. But at some point, I believe it came to describe sexual anatomy quite a bit. Maybe it was all those penthouse letters. I don't know, but it became gross to many women in particular, and so I don't use it too often. It's just I don't have strong feelings about it one way or the other, but yeah, it's
I like
people
the
don't
word
like it.
at least. I'm gonna try to say it more.
All right. Well, yeah, sure. Annoy a gender. That seems like a great idea for our progressive podcast, Fatheree.
I didn't know it was a gender thing.
Yeah. No, for sure it is.
I have met
almost
guys that
exclusively
do not
gender.
like the word. So
What's that?
I've met males, guys,
Okay.
men who do not like the word. I don't have any particular feelings one way or the other about it. But
Now, Fatheree, this first image you got right here, I do want to say that on a kind of there are times when Lower Decks does emulate TNG and just falls into some of its tropes, or will play things a little more serious. And I thought all this was pretty cool. I thought the generation ship was super cool looking, really great design. I liked seeing some of the effects around it, like them towing it in a little bit. I'm sure you got a graphic for that later on. But yeah, this was actually kind of a neat way to start off for me with, I guess, a somewhat more serious sci-fi plot line, even if it was generation ships are a trope and they were kind of acknowledging it as such. It wasn't like, let's stare in awe and grandeur at this. It was like here's a standard sci-fi idea. Now let's see what we're going to do with it. But they did have a cool looking generation ship.
Can I say one thing about the generation ship that bothered me? Yeah, and I do agree with you. I thought this was pretty cool, but it is not a generation ship.
Yes, that was
a cryo ship.
Yeah, it's like a sleeper ship or a cryo ship.
Yeah, say a generation ship is the people who get on board at the beginning of the voyage are not the same people who get off. They die, but a next generation.
Whole generations come and go. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a good point. I don't think it even occurred to me. I just kind of took it on faith, and then they kind of had moved on to goofy plot stuff.
Yeah, but we have the Cerritos team up with her sister ship, the Merced, to deal with this ship that they find that belonged to some ancient alien race. They were traveling to colonize some planet.
They were the ones who found the ship. This is not a second contact thing where the Enterprise found it and then said, hey, you guys should pick this thing up. We're moving on. Okay.
Yeah, they didn't specify, but I like that idea. All right. It is a cool design. The cryo tubes kind of remind you of Space Seed that introduced Khan way back on the original series.
They also remind me of every other cryo tube I've ever seen in sci-fi.
Well,
I have to admit,
about when Star Trek did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
Well, I actually thought about the neutral zone with the cowboy and the Wall Street banker. But
what I think of the Voyager episode with the evil clown.
Yes, evil clown episode. The Thaw. Yes, that's a good one. I will say they mentioned that they were mummified, but I just took that as a cute way of saying that they were still frozen. I assumed they were all still alive, and it took me some time into the episode before I realized, oh no, they are actually all dead.
Yeah.
So, then
cryo tubes broke or something. Something correctly.
And then I immediately leapt to, they're going to use the life goo to bring the crew back to life. I mean, maybe not intentionally, but somehow that's going to happen. And all these people are going to wake up and chaos is going to ensue and hijinks will ensue. And they never once did that. They never even got close to doing that the whole way through the episode. So both my attempts to predictively figure out what was going to happen were completely wrong.
So Brian, missed opportunity, or did they surprise you in a good way?
I guess what's the point of putting all those people on the ship if you aren't going to do anything with them? Why not just have the ship have the bio goo and leave it at that?
I guess they were, to some degree, they may have just thought, let's start with what would be a typical starter storyline for TNG or TOS. And, with some built-in, like, sort of plot hooks, and then just go in a different direction or something like that. I don't know that I wonder if there was any, more thought than that they
I think it was just to convey that it was, their concept was, it's a terraforming goo that colonists would take to go terraform a planet. So they had to explain, well, we don't have time to deal with the colonists, so why aren't the colonists around? Why do we just have their goo? But
did anybody ever, express, sadness that there were thousands or tens of thousands of dead people on this ship?
No, but I kind of wish they had
a slight overlook.
Yeah,
but I feel like most Star Trek shows wouldn't have dwelt on that too much beyond maybe a line or two of dialogue.
But somebody would have said, like, Riker would have been like, it's sobering, isn't it? So many lives, all those dreams lost. And then they would move on to the plot. But, he'd say something.
Yeah, exactly. The life goo itself we should talk about, because what it does is, I guess, rearrange matter, kind of like
Genesis?
Genesis
Yes.
device. Genesis?
What's that?
It's liquid Genesis.
Yeah.
Genesis in a can.
Yeah, like it'll turn a tricorder into a plant. And so we're introduced to Captain Durango, the Tellarite. We finally get a Tellarite on this show. I know Larry Nemechek somewhere was jumping up and down because he's so excited to see the return of the Tellarites.
I'm glad he wasn't.
Finally, it took them 4 episodes. Finally, really? I can't believe it took 4 episodes to get my Tellarite
shown on this show.
What's it? I noticed, by the way, this Tellarite didn't have tusks, and I'm into that.
Yeah, they only do that on Discovery, and maybe like that weird one on Picard. But I hate the Picard Tellarite. I never want to see it again.
I hope that Picard Tellarite gets his eye torn out.
Yeah, I like that Lower Decks tends to go with more of the traditional designs that we would have seen on. Well, the original series are kind of Enterprise in this case. This is more like the Enterprise Tellarite.
Yeah.
He's pumpy and he has a mega beard.
Yeah, I feel like I have a Tellarite beard right now.
You've got the argumentative side down, Fatheree.
This is the first time where the opening pre-title sequence ties into the rest of the episode on this show. Mariner starts things off on the wrong foot. I think she might have intentionally poking at her captain mom. We saw her do that in episode 1, but yeah, when she's yawning and during their briefing, and Captain Durango gets all pissed off, and then Captain Freeman gets embarrassed. So this kind of reignites the sparks that were established in the first episode between mother and daughter.
Yes, I have no doubt she was deliberately trying to wind up mom by disrupting the meeting and embarrassing mom.
I don't know why, like if it's my own just sort of instincts, or if it's decades of Trek that have actually been somewhat about the somewhat regimented command structure and all that. But it annoys me whenever she's like sort of insubordinate. I'm like, she is being super obnoxious.
Yeah. No, I actually was like, what? Geez. And I finally decided as the episode went on, okay. I'm blanking on her name.
Do that when they were doing their spoof scene, like later on when they're like picking beige chair colors or whatever. That'd be one thing. But like when they're kind of doing actual mission stuff, it's anyway. Sorry, Brian. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, it just seems like Mariner and her mom have a very bad relationship. And it's so bad that they will both embarrass themselves and look like ridiculous idiots in public in front of their fellow crewmates, because that's how wound up and tangled up they are in this bad toxic relationship, where Mariner is always trying to screw with mom and get mom to break her cool, and mom is always trying to basically be like Boimler, and maybe that's why Mariner's always picking on Boimler. It's like, oh, it's my mom, only it's some kid who doesn't know any better, and I can maybe drive this out of him. So.
Right. I think that's a reasonable take on the sort of relationship. It's also, I mean, in a comedy setting, everything gets turned up to 11. So if you've got characters who are at odds, they become comedically at odds all the time. But
it allows the show to be a little different for Star Trek and bring in things you might typically see in a family sitcom,
like assholes.
Well, yeah, like I can't imagine like Ben Sisko and Jake Sisko having like some of these types of moments.
I think Ben Sisko would shut that down quickly, I think.
But Ben Sisko is such a good parent that things would probably never get to that point.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely.
Parent in all of Star Trek.
He would never be trying to play mind games with Jake. So,
Yeah, I like when they have like the argument or the confrontation in the ready room, and she's calling her Beckett. Like she's the only person who calls her by her first name, which you think that somebody else might figure out. Oh, are they like secretly mother and daughter? Like, why do they talk to each other as
It has been established that the rest of the crew doesn't know.
As far as I can tell, no one else has mentioned it. It was kept a secret from the audience until that tease scene and
nobody
the end of the first episode.
Nobody's like said, "Hey, Mariner, pull some strings with your mom and get us some extra leave time," or that hasn't ever even been mentioned.
No, but that's where some of my disappointment in this episode comes in from. Is as much as I love them exploring the mother-daughter stuff, I really wanted them to flesh this stuff out. I was hoping that we'd find out a little bit more. I'm very intrigued by like Mariner's backstory. Why does she go by a different last name than her mom? Why has she been on all these different ships and now like she's stuck on the Cerritos, even though her mom doesn't want her there? They keep teasing at something that has been kept a secret, and I wanted them to pull back the curtain, not all the way, but just a little bit more than they did here.
Yeah. Well, they do actually have the first officer like flat out say, "Why do you put up with her shit?" I mean, yes. And so they are at least aware that there's something deeply strange and screwed up about the way things are working on this between them. All I can say is that the answer better be worth all of the buildup that they are laying down. So.
Yeah, the longer you draw it out, the more you set yourself up for disappointment if it doesn't deliver.
Yeah.
Look at Star Trek Discovery Season 2 for a perfect example on how not to do it, in my opinion, with the Red Angel story arc that I did not that I was not satisfied with at the end of it.
Oddly enough, among my issues with Lower Decks, I'm not particularly worried about them. That mystery that doesn't draw into me, and maybe it's because I haven't been kind of caught up in it because the show hasn't engaged me as much. But yeah, I don't mind if they wait till the last episode of the season or whatever to say what their deal is. I think they would be smart to at least reveal the basics of it or something else earlier. But if they don't, I won't be like.
I mean, it seems like they could get away with revealing what the problem is, and then have a later episode that resolves or at least makes progress towards solving the problem, unless they want to do a cliffhanger ending, in which case the problem gets worse. But
I do think that. Well, go ahead, Father.
I was just going to say, with as much as Mike McMahon is in love with TNG and Berman era Star Trek, and the fact that they greenlit seasons 1 and 2, so when they were producing season 1, he knew he was going to get a second season. I hadn't thought of this before, but I could totally see it ending with a cliffhanger. I just
had a Mariner yawn that I tried to stifle.
I was trying to hold that back when you were doing your opening statement earlier.
The animation on stuff like that is pretty good. There's some great keyframes in there of like the kind of faces people make.
Well, this is.
Oh, just real quick, Father. I just wanted to quick add that. Certainly, Discovery and I think Picard have suffered though from trying to like wait to the finale for like for everything to cut loose, a big episode with lots of fighting and shooting and emotional conflicts and maybe a reveal or two. And I definitely, to me that's not something I particularly want from Trek. And I also think they haven't done it as well as many other shows have. Like if you're going to do that, you need to do it really well. So I think it's the sitcom format makes it like a little bit easier going for me, where meta plot stuff is just kind of percolating for me, not real high on my radar.
Well, I mean, this is a much less serialized show, so if they don't have like a big reveal, it's not going to ruin the entire season, because a lot of these episodes you can enjoy on your own. Whereas with Picard and Discovery Season 2, my opinion on the entire season lowered because of the disappointment I experienced in the finales.
Well, I have to disagree a little bit. The reveal of what is causing all the mysteries around the captain's name I'm blanking on.
Freeman.
Freeman?
Freeman is
Freeman.
Carol Freeman.
Carol Freeman.
Okay. Shit out of here.
Yeah. Anyway, Freeman and Mariner what that reveal of what's actually going on there will, I think, color my opinion of most of their interactions and perhaps a lot of Mariners actions in general back through the whole season. So I think they better stick the landing on that one. So because otherwise my opinion of this show could drastically fall. So
well, Commander Ransom inspires Captain Freeman to give Ensign Mariner all of the shittiest jobs on the ship and try to get her to quit, which is kind of like when you work somewhere and they don't want to fire you and pay you unemployment, so they treat you like shit and try to get you to quit.
It's also it's the standard bad breakup technique of you don't want to man up or woman up or ovary up to it and to cut something off, and you let it lapse by kind of bad behavior.
Oh, I don't think I've ever experienced that unless someone did it to me and I was too thick to notice. But yeah,
I think a lot of people have experienced it.
But they're getting their assignments, and Boimler's all happy because he gets to go hang out in the conference room and get access to the senior officer replicator. And I'm guessing now that the reason why they sleep in bunks, now that apparently they have replicators that aren't as good, it's because that's kind of done intentionally. They're kind of what happens in real life military, during like basic training and stuff, when they're hard on you to like, you have to prove you can get through it. Because there's no reason for them not to have like just as good of a food replicator. So
yeah,
I think that kind of explains some of the lower deck conditions. So some of the stuff that the show is presented kind of makes a little bit more sense if you take that into context.
So the bosses are deliberately making their minions' lives miserable just cause.
Not miserable, but just like you have to like earn your privileges.
Interesting.
It's like when you play a sport and like it's the like beginning of the season, the coach makes you like run a lot to try to get like the quitters out.
Maybe they should have to earn the privilege of having an air conditioning on or heat when it's cold.
The replicators for the crewmen deliberately make the uniforms itchy. So for the lower decks people, I mean, I don't know. You could do that. I guess
slippery slope, Starfleet. Be careful about it.
Yeah, when you have your sport athletes run a bunch, yes, it weeds out the weaklings. But this is after Starfleet Academy. That should have already happened.
Yeah, but I don't know like another explanation for like why you would have like a less good replicator. I mean, like Picard did that.
The athletes are actually going to be better athletes because they spent a bunch of time running, which I don't see how shitty replicators are going to actually improve the quality of the work these people do.
Now that said, this kind of the underpinnings of this is the old problems of Star Trek and sort of economics and how exactly you portray their post-scarcity stuff, which is to say they never ever dive deep into that on Star Trek. It's always something that they kind of want you to take on faith, but they don't want to go too deep into because it's not the point of the show. So yeah, I mean, I think the bunks and the other and the like the replicators all just kind of amount to it's funny for this show.
But I think it makes more sense here than like it does on Picard when you have people working at Utopia Planitia Fleet Yards and apparently they have like a shitty replicator. Like I don't know what the explanation for that is.
Well, it looked like something they cobbled together. Maybe the room's not actually supposed to have a replicator, and they just installed one in there. Like when the school teacher who has a microwave next to their desk. So.
There's a writing trope that of people complaining about the food, and it very often is it shows up in school, movies or military movies and things like that. And I sometimes wonder if they just do stuff like that just because they're falling back on slightly hacky writing tropes.
Yeah, could be the case. But Mariner gets...
What was it that Boimler said that he could get, like... I forget what the foods were, but I was kind of amused by his list of things that they can get there.
Well, he talked about getting macaroni and cheese with the breading on top.
With breadcrumbs on...
That's at the end of the episode. You're jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. We don't got pictures for that yet. Carry on.
Well, they did talk about some food at the front end too,
That's
but
what I
I
was
don't
going to say. He
remember what it
mentioned it
was.
several times in the episode, or at least twice, I guess.
Yeah, I don't remember what the foods were, but
It was
I do
like
remember.
there was something like pierogies or something.
Yeah.
Not that, but
Oh.
something like that.
But yeah, I think it was like some food. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, carry on, sir.
So Mariner is getting all like the terrible assignments that no one wants. Meanwhile, they set up kind of, I guess, the C story or the D story. It's kind of hard to keep straight. You basically have like, I guess the A story is the generation ship. The B story is like Mariner's promotion. The C story is Tendi and the Ascension, and then the D story is Boimler deciding to break bad later. But
Yeah, which really amounts to like 2 scenes, but
yeah, they kind of all blend together. They actually tie together so well that I was thinking, well, that episode was kind of all over the place, wasn't it? And I was like, oh no, like kind of everything just fit pretty well. That
I don't know if Tendi's story really tied to the others other than thematically that it was all about character relationships.
Well, also like the idea of like ascending is also like promoting. And moving up in rank, moving up in your
all right.
status as a life form.
All right.
In our comment section, the sleepy craftsman mentions fritters were at least mentioned at some point, and that rings a bell.
Oh yes,
and
those sweet fritters.
Yeah, and Jude Beacom mentions lobster ravioli, which is I think maybe one of the bigger ones when we're cutting to the end. Yeah, now that sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
but yeah, so we get Lieutenant O'Connor. Do y'all know who did the voice work for this character?
No.
It's the guy who was the kid in The Sixth Sense who could see dead people.
Oh.
How interesting.
I forget his name. If somebody checking us out live remembers his name, go ahead and comment and let me know. But
is that Haley Joel Osment?
Yes, that's it.
Sorry to ruin that for our commenters.
Well, for some reason, like that name never sticks in my brain. There's just like sometimes there's like a certain fact that no matter how many times I'm exposed to it, it just doesn't compute.
He's got a serial killer three name
like John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Lieutenant O'Connor, and if you notice, he has the sand mandala. Mandala, I only know what that word means because that came up in Star Trek Picard earlier this year. But if you notice, there's a little bit of foreshadowing. You can see like a man in the middle of a bird, and also the face of a koala. There's a koala bear in the.
Sand. Yeah, nice. I approve. I did actually like that Mandela a lot. I was like, that's a really cool emblem. I wouldn't mind just having a picture of that in my Star Trek screensaver. So.
But Tendi, as was established in the first episode, is not very familiar with sand. Maybe that explains why she didn't know if you knock a Zuchian gong into a sand mandala, it'll ruin 2 years worth of work.
I must assume he's got some sort of stasis field he turns on when he's not updating his sand thing, because otherwise every time the ship shook from whatever it would get messed up. So
the inertial dampers weren't working.
Yeah, so he's got to have some sort of force field he can switch on when he's not messing with it.
I was amused by Tendi ordering up through the replicator like multicolored sand. Or did she say like room temperature or something like that? Trying desperately to fix it.
Every time they use the replicator for something in the show, they should specify a temperature at the end of it. Did you notice the mistake?
Phaser room temperature.
There is a mistake in the background here. You can see the sand in the replicator before Tendi uses it.
Oh. That's so weird in animation that shouldn't really be, but I guess that it sometimes the scene may have been taken.
They might have rearranged the scenes at the last minute, just an edit to get the shot they needed.
No, they just stuck the wrong background in there because the way that you watch it, there's like sand and then there's no sand and then it's there. But my friend pointed that out to me. I didn't catch that on my own.
I want to see somebody come up with the explanation for that. The Marvel style no prize what's the benevolent explanation for how the sand was already there?
Well, the
Anybody
sand gets thrown through the air when the gong, and it goes everywhere. So maybe some of it landed up there, and that's what that little
But then
bit of
it
color you're
leaks
seeing.
out of there. If you watch, it's like there, not there, there.
Is it there before she is it not there before she gives the order to the replicator?
Yes.
Okay.
Like,
because it could be if she already, I don't know how the audio ties in with these slides you're putting up, but if she actually started giving the orders, it might have cleaned the plate before
before she gives the order, it's there.
Okay.
And then when she gives the order, it is not there.
All
and
right.
then it appears there.
So it is not there before she gives the order.
So if people want to explain this one, they're going to have to work in temporal stuff.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, this kind of kicks off the story of her and Lieutenant O'Connor. And
yes, they get off on what you would call the worst foot ever, and she is then trying to sort of make amends.
Now, which was the episode where there was they Crusher gets, I think, involved with a guy who's trying to ascend or about to ascend or something like that?
Oh, John Doe.
Yeah, John Doe. Was that the name of the episode?
No. The name of the episode was I got it in my notes. We'll get to it later.
Okay, all right.
I
was thinking about that because I was like, where have we seen that? This trope of ascension becomes a huge deal in mid to late Stargate stuff. And so yeah, all of this feels incredibly like there are Stargate episodes that kind of parallel what this guy is doing. And at least in one case, if not two, depending on how you look at it. And so, yeah, this all felt like a very Stargate-y plot line. I'm not saying that as a criticism, especially since this is Star Trek. So if it's never been done on Star Trek before, then maybe it's time for it to happen. But I did
Brian, do you think there's any possibility they were doing like a little light spoof of Stargate?
It is possible, especially since the Ascended thing kind of looks a little like what the Ascended things in Stargate look like.
Stargate last week too, when they had Boimler humming the TNG theme in the elevator. Apparently, there was an episode of Stargate where a character hums the Stargate.
That's theme. Right. There is. They're in the elevator and they hum the Stargate theme.
And,
yes.
And they're taking a couple of jabs at Star Wars too, like with the Boimler's comment on sand getting everywhere, and also the sentient cave. It's a dark, scary place that knows things. I think kind of tied into Dagobah, but
yeah, okay. No, you're right. All right, well, cool. I like that they're pulling from more than just Star Trek.
So it was nice to see Boimler happy for a little bit in this episode, where he's enjoying his assignment and he's doing the what was it called?
Boimler's an asshole when he's happy.
Sarcastic Vulcan salute. And then I like that Mariner thought it still looked cool on him. But we get I would call it like the labors of Mariner, where she's doing all of the terrible jobs, the holodeck waste removal. So
now I guess, I mean, we know that the ship, from the tech manuals anyway, the ship says that they actually do recycle all the poo and pee back into food.
I don't really like that, though. I'd rather throw it away.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been stated in the show, but it was stated in
Enterprise. On the NX-01, they recycled waste.
Okay, so and the Next Generation Tech Manual says they do it in the 24th century, so that's generally considered mostly canon.
But I kind of like the idea of the holodeck being prevented from breaking down biomatter, because that could like murder people if for some reason they were in the holodeck when they shouldn't be.
They've got good safeguards.
Yeah.
They've never.
They don't though.
We don't. This is farther in the future.
I was saying that with ironic.
Yeah, this is farther in the future. They might have safeguards that they did not previously have. So this might be the consequence of all of those other holodeck malfunction episodes.
But that's one of those things where it's a trope where, because I don't think it's intended by the creators that we think that holodecks are super dangerous.
Right.
They just make good plot points. So I don't actually particularly take seriously the notion that they're super death traps. Presumably, they're used like thousands of times a day, all the time, and don't create Moriartys.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think that's how most people are supposed to think about them.
Yeah.
But she's also lubing the turbo lift, and we get to see Lieutenant Shax, and
Yeah.
I just love that it is a normal looking turbo lift and doesn't look like a Six Flags ride like in Discovery or in Short Treks. It actually looks almost identical to the TNG turbo.
Yeah, I was going to say they didn't just make a normal looking turbo lift. They copied almost exactly the TNG turbo lift. So I guess
it was such a weird flex for Discovery to decide we need this wild, I don't know, Kelvinverse style fly through of the inner workings of a ship that looked like it was, the size of a planet.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love most about Lower Decks is this stuff doesn't even like stand out to me. It just feels so natural and normal. Like it's a normal Klingon. I don't even think about it till later after I watched the episode. And I was like, oh yeah, it was a normal Klingon for the first time in years. Or like, like why would you even think anything about this? This is the turbo lift shaft. But it's like, oh no, it's just like a normal turbo lift shaft. Like it's not supposed to be remarkable in any way.
Again, you have to sort of suspend your disbelief that the crew members are just going to ignore warning signs and nearly get other crew members killed. But that just seems to be par for the course in this show.
Yeah, that was a dick move, Shax.
Yeah.
That's how Emilio Estevez got killed in the first Mission Impossible movie. He got elevator splattered.
Oh. I haven't seen that since I saw it in the theater. That's the last time I saw that.
Yeah, I saw it on VHS in like 1994, 95, whenever it came out, and I haven't seen it again since then. I was bored with it. I should probably watch it now.
It's a pretty good movie. I like it. There's no gunplay. It's all twisty spice stuff.
Yeah, I have a good friend who tells me I should definitely revisit it. Maybe I will someday, but I'm too busy watching Star Trek all the time.
Oh yeah, I guess we should stay on topic.
The carbon filter cleaning. I was correct, by the way, when we watched the trailer, and I was like, I think that's a big carbon filter. It probably takes all of the carbon out of the atmosphere so they can recycle oxygen. But I've been wondering for like a year, because I was at Star Trek Las Vegas and Mike McMahon was there talking about Lower Decks and like some of the tasks and stuff that these people do. And one of the things that he mentioned was scraping carbon off of slightly harder carbon, and it was kind of like an in joke between him and one of the writers that was there with him. I've been wondering since then, like, what does that mean? That must be from a line of dialogue, scraping carbon off of slightly harder carbon. So I finally know now. But they have carbon cleaning races.
It seems odd that the phaser is the ideal tool to do this. You think they'd have some specialized device.
I agree, Brian.
I like that they use the phaser for a bunch of stuff, like removing the graffiti.
Like, Father, you like to see it more as a tool and less as a weapon for injury?
Not just that, but as like a familiar device, and I like them kind of adding something to it. It's the same.
That is true. Roddenberry wanted the phaser to be depicted as a tool in the Next Generation that also just happened to kill people.
Like
but it had many other functions.
Like the time I accidentally killed somebody with a blowtorch.
Hey, hammers, chainsaws. I mean, come on. But way back in the original series, if you look at The Enemy Within, the first time we see someone heat up rocks with a phaser, they were doing it all the way back then in early TOS episodes.
Yeah. If they were on the ground on an alien planet cleaning a carbon filter with a phaser, I would have said, well, of course. But then there in the ship, I was like, really? They don't have a better tool for this? But who knows? Maybe that's the best tool, I guess. So
the commander sees that the captain's plan is not working. Mariner continues to enjoy herself. And that's when the captain gets the idea of promoting Mariner. She brings her into the conference room, and congratulations, you're a lieutenant now.
I do want to say the captain, it says something about Captain Freeman that she doesn't know what goes on a holodeck. She must be just even a bigger square than Boimler, because Boimler knows what goes on a holodeck, and she doesn't. So she's a bigger square than Boimler, which is pretty square. And I guess that could explain some of why Mariner's just so annoyed with her, if we're actually seeing her dialed back and that she can get much worse than this. I guess in a sense she did with the micromanage episode.
Well, she's made a number of what I would call pretty bad command decisions, whether it's taking the credit for the lower decks work in episode 1 or trying to get her daughter to quit the ship by annoying her.
See, I actually enjoyed that just because, mom does know how to get your goat, and the mom is the only one who can get Mariner's goat, and she does, and Mariner gets all annoyed and frustrated and I was like, all right, yeah, Mariner's finally getting what she deserves.
I see a little bit of them giving me a little bit of reason to like Captain Freeman in this episode, but beyond that, I really haven't had much reason to like her at all. Mm-hmm. And so I'm hoping that we'll get a similar moment to what we had last week where, I really like Commander Ransom now. I want to see an episode like that showcases Captain Freeman's positive traits and kind of gives me a reason to root for her on occasion. I don't mind her trying to get her daughter to transfer. Like she tried to talk to her admiral husband about that, and she's apparently going to have to get her off herself, get her removed from the ship herself. But
sorry, I was just laughing at the terminology.
I was trying to correct myself, but it was too late.
All right.
But Boimler freaks out because he's like, "Oh my God, you're a senior grade, a full lieutenant, no less." She has the 2 gold pips, so she just skipped junior grade.
I guess it's not as bad as how Kirk went from 3rd-year cadet to captain in 48 hours.
Yeah, well, that was an alternate timeline where weird things happened. But, here we also have the argument between the senior officers, which this actually made me laugh, was the conversation about replacing the chairs in their conference room. Because I don't mind poking fun at Next Generation and its like boring conference room stuff they did. I think with that show being as popular as it is, it's okay to you're not punching down when you poke fun at TNG of any Star Trek show.
There's a certain degree like after a while where, because they also in that episode they were poking fun at the kind of like the don't they somewhere in here the hoity-toity violin-y type stuff like Mariner, or what's his name?
Boimler last week.
Wasn't there something else with that in this episode?
Yeah, well, when they get to her management training, and it's almost like a talent show type thing.
Right, and it's all very, very much kind of like a Turn to 11 TNG sort of goofiness. Occasionally, I would find it like I would think it'd be cool. There's it feels a little love-hatey with me at this point because they sort of bring up the, I don't know, lameness of TNG often enough.
Do they though? Like that's never really been done beyond this TV show. This is the first time the franchise has ever been.
Maybe they shouldn't have done it.
I mean, like for me, like I kind of have like a little bit of frustration with TNG. I love the Next Generation, but
there were a couple of DS9 swipes at TNG, like Garrick going on about how he hates Earl Grey tea.
Well, when you're like the best Star Trek show, it's okay to poke fun at the, I don't want to say most overrated, but I'll say like 3rd or 4th best.
To some degree, I feel like TNG, even though it is often a favorite, that it's not like it's felt like inviolable, because people have talked for ages about like, oh yeah, the first 2 seasons are unwatchable.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Everybody will easily critique that Troy never, really didn't have great episodes other than 1 or 2. So it definitely has taken its shots, I guess, over the years, or gotten its licks rather.
Yeah. But they're debating the chair with the leather stripe, which might be too ostentatious, or the bar stools that Shaq says are uncomfortable. And when Commander Billups, the engineer, tells him, "Well, you're not sitting in them right," he gets all mad and pulls a Worf. He's like, "I've killed better men for less."
I have to agree. I think the bar stool style is not a comfortable format. So
I know we disagree there, because I
identify with Shax here.
Yeah. But Mariner is just miserable, because who the hell wouldn't be?
Yeah.
And she gets the bigger room, the bigger quarters, and I thought it was interesting that like she didn't like it because she's lonely. Boimler is all jealous. He's like, "Don't you like having all this space?" And she's like, "No, I'm far away from everyone."
No, that was I did like how effective that the the promotion worked as a punishment. I actually really enjoyed that. This was the episode, I think I've mentioned it, but this is the episode where I realized I really want to see a Boimler impresses the captain, because Boimler and the captain kind of approach life largely the same way. I'm seeing that more and more. And there should be a moment where the captain realizes that Boimler is like the best potential officer
and
ever.
And Mariner gets jealous. You could do like the thing where like the kid is jealous of like the parent bonding with this other kid.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
I could sort of see that happening.
Yeah.
In the first episode, when she asked him to spy, she seemed a little bit like she was like, she's like, I can see, like a little condescending. Like, I know you're kind of a toady. You're actually a little too nerdy, and dot every I, cross every T. And so I think you're just the right person for this job. But yeah, I can see her at some point kind of coming around and seeing that that he has a certain apple polisher effectiveness.
Yes.
But this is where Boimler gets the idea of like, oh, they want you to be a rule breaker. Well, I'm gonna break the rules. I'm gonna get promoted too. And I watched this with my girlfriend Antonia, and she actually thought that they could have done more with this. She thought that this was going to be potentially a lot funnier, but they didn't really do much with it, because the idea of like him trying to be a bad boy is kind of hilarious. That's where I'm saying, like, this episode, I wish some of the jokes
like smoking in the turbo lift.
I guess.
What do they call their death stick cigarettes and
salt sucks or something like that?
No, from Picard. What was the ones that Rusty?
Snake leaf.
What is it?
Snake leaf.
Snake leaf. Yeah. He should have been sneaking in some snake leaf in the restroom.
He's gonna vape some snake leaf, maybe. But
see, I have to go the other way with this. I have seen so many of the dumb guy thinks that if I have to be mean, I have to be mean or rude in order to get what I want, and so then they run around comically being mean or rude, even though they're a nice guy, and everyone's all offended and they look stupid. I am so tired of that trope in sitcoms. I was glad that it only lasted basically 2 scenes, the setup and then the payoff, and that was it. And I was really glad.
So what does he do? I actually forget what is it he does.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
It's just one thing.
Yeah.
Dramatic setup.
But yeah, Mariner is having to audit the audits with Commander Ransom. That made me laugh out loud. I thought that was funny. And he's like, "No, you get to audit the audits," because that felt very TNG.
Yeah, but that also feels like kind of decent workplace humor, kind of Office Space style.
Yeah. And then the captain doing her spoken jazz thing. And
I thought that was a lot of fun. I was like, this is much better than that screaming loud stuff that her daughter does. So,
well, Mariner did not think so. She was so miserable.
Mortified?
Because her mom was going da 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 da.
Nothing hotter on a starship than a scatting contest.
Yeah, when she's like vocal jazz is a lot like captaining. It's all about the notes you don't scat. And then she brings this guy onto the stage. This is all supposed to be part of some like manager training or something. But she brings on this guy with like the dorkiest name I've ever heard, next to Brad Boimler. Lieutenant Winger Bringston Jr., and he's going to do the United Federation of Characters. Then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, I didn't see you beam down there." So I think he was about to do like a one-man play where he like plays like a bunch of different characters or something. But I could see how that would not be fun to watch.
It depends on how it's performed, but yeah, it's certainly the sort of thing Mariner would have hated. So.
No, where the jokes really fell flat for me was during the executive poker thing. Because I kind of feel like poker is such distinctly and uniquely TNG. I know like other Star Trek shows will occasionally have like people playing cards.
TNG's thing.
Like TNG broke away from Spock and Kirk playing chess to play poker.
It was honestly, for a show that was kind of nerdy, I felt like it was like their slightly forced attempt to show, hey, these guys sometimes do cool stuff. And they were still a little bit nerdy when they did their cool stuff, but that's what TNG was. So this was one of the other ones. I guess that coupled with the kind of the previous talent show type thing and the other stuff made me feel like they were maybe a little punching down at TNG.
You can't punch down at TNG; it's on the top.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah.
Well, like that is to say, or maybe I should say they were using cheap jokes. Like I think that there's funnier stuff to do.
If some of this material had been written a little bit smarter, and some of it I like, so like I laughed out loud at Audit the Audits, and I actually thought that some of the talent show type stuff was funny, but like here it's like everyone folds, and it's like, oh, I guess like on TNG they did fold a lot, but is that like was that like a weird thing? Is that like something worth commenting on here? It seems
seemed
weird.
like the executive officer that we saw in the previous episode ripping his shirt off and all of that. I can't remember the XO's name, but
Ransom. Jack Ransom.
Does Ransom seem like a guy who's going to be all wussy while playing poker?
No, like he's supposed to be like kind of a Riker-ish type guy. So what should have happened is like he goes all in and wins. But instead,
I think there should have been unintended sexual tension as he and Mariner having like are the last two at the in a hand standing, and they suddenly like beads of sweat start forming on their foreheads, and you see close-ups of their hands touching the cards, and anyway.
Yeah. That would have been much
a little
better.
bit oddball with it like that.
Yeah, it was a missed opportunity, and I like the more like character-driven stuff. So I would have loved if they would have acknowledged that attraction that was established in the previous episode between the two of them. And I get the vibes that this show is going to be a little bit like TNG, and they'll just drop a plot point until like they feel like bringing it up again, like 2-3 episodes or a season down the line or whatever. Kind of like how we like to talk about X-Men a lot on Tex-Trek, kind of like how Chris Claremont would write X-Men comics. He'd bring something up and then just ignore it for like 3 years and then bring it up again. But I don't know if they're going to do that. I would have liked to have built on that stuff last week because I really liked that, and I'm curious to see where that goes. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, when I saw the
Mariner, and it kind of humanizes Ransom and makes him more likable.
Yeah, and when I saw Mariner sitting at the poker table, I was like, she's going to take them all to town. She's going to be awesome at this. But somehow, no. So, and I just kind of fizzled. So,
yeah, it was just dumb when Shax is like, we don't go all in. Like, we don't do that. It's like too aggressive. We're just a friendly game or whatever. And
Shax is the guy who's threatening people over chair decoration design earlier,
Not as thoughtful as I think some of the other episodes have been. Yeah. But as Brian pointed out, the punishment does work. Mariner is miserable. And, I guess from the captain's point of view, she thinks she's going to get her wish. She's going to finally get her off of the Cerritos. But one other thing I want to mention is that Mariner is an ops. She has like the gold uniform because she's an ops now. No, the typical ops officer we see is Ensign Barnes, that Trill that was going on a date with Rutherford in the first episode. And she's only an ensign. So with Mariner being a full lieutenant, does she like outrank Barnes and become like the official ops officer now? Is that what just happened? No, it doesn't explain it, but I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let's put a pin in Mariner and Freeman and talk about some of the Tendi O'Connor stuff.
Yeah, Tendi is still my favorite character by far. I'm annoyed that she's not generally more central to the plot lines because I generally love almost everything she does, and I continue to even this plot line where she screws up big time. I actually liked quite a bit.
And she tries to present the Hiverian metronome to try to help get Lieutenant O'Connor back synced up with his spirituality. The Ascension thing is just so weird. And it's kind of unfathomable to think that like in Star Trek, like this is like a normal thing that like some people just do this and like you can go and watch it happen. But
well, I actually missed. Did they say was it from some particular culture or another? Like it does seem like the kind of thing, every once in a while somebody would come on the Enterprise in TNG or any of the other shows and be like, "Oh, it's been my life's dream to, I've been pursuing watching this supernova collapse or whatever, or to see an android like Data." So you sometimes see people when they get their big moments in their life, it happens on a starship.
Yeah, but it's just like a little weird to like, I'm gonna just turn into a god, and if I work really hard, it'll happen. There are some examples.
I guess it happens often enough on Star Trek that there's some sort of ascension like that. They were sort of sweeping it as if it had become prosaic.
Yeah.
but it's just it's just weird to me how casual they treat it, I guess. And I do wish that there was a little techno-babbly explanation where he's like, oh yeah, like I like exposed myself to some type of like binary star radiation, or like I've been reading up on something
like that, yeah.
Like just like give me like some type of like scientific explanation, or like maybe he's part of an alien race that they have like an ancient technique or something. I don't know, but it's just weird that like this guy named Lieutenant O'Connor could do this. But he's.
Oh, go ahead, Father.
I was gonna say, like, he's pissed at Tindy, who is as we learn, she can't stand it when someone doesn't like her, and so her big struggle in this episode is like, how do I like this guy like me instead of hating me?
Yeah, and I love.
Enough, well, go ahead.
I love hyper Tendy trying to do Serene, and yet she's trying to do it in her usual hyperactive, all in, dialed up to 11 way that she does everything. But by definition, that can't be Serenity, and she can't really communicate or interact or even really understand what it is she's chasing. Because
it's something you can't force. It's something that like sheer enthusiasm and energy and effort can't force onto someone.
Yes.
I presume that she must not be a spiritually minded type person herself.
Well, at least not that type of religion anyway. But then the other guy,
like in her approach, her like multicultural approach to help Lieutenant O'Connor, I think that expresses some level of open-mindedness.
Yeah, again, I really like her just for
her
versatility.
We got a new set, by the way, when we see the mess hall that they're eating in. We had not seen that before.
And I guess so. That's true. I hadn't even noticed that. I was, he's got tacos.
Yeah, but apparently these tacos and pudding are not as good as the ones that the senior officers have access to. But he's still really excited about that
Durango tacos.
Well, Rutherford was like really into that pudding, and he's really into the tractor beam in this episode. And that's kind of all he does. So he takes a back seat with this half-hour format. They kind of have a hard time showcasing all four characters, and that's understandable. There's typically at least one person who has to take a back seat for the other three. And Boimler too. Boimler has the least to do in this episode of the four we've seen.
Yes, it was very light on him. There was also the irony that O'Connor has no amount of zen in him at all about his whole situation. Like, if you were truly on the verge of enlightenment, you wouldn't care that you failed. So,
that's how we learn he's a poser, and she calls him out on that.
But she can't even she has so little understanding of Serenity that she can't even call him on that really until she doesn't She's just
looking inward. She has kind of like that insecurity that kind of turns like a little like egocentric, and she's only thinking of like herself and what she's doing wrong, and she's not really paying attention to him.
Yeah.
One of our commenters, All-Star Guru, says Mexican food for the California class ship. It's a staple. I like that.
Yeah. As a lifelong Texan, I only eat Mexican food within the state of Texas or within Mexico. But I've heard,
don't hate on their fish tacos, Fatheree.
I've heard some people cheer for Cali Mexican food, but I don't think it'd be my jam, bro. I'm sorry.
That said, they did look like hard shell tacos, which is on the gringo side of things.
Well, let's talk about the two ships and the tractor beam mission and the chaos that ensues here from Captain Durango. By the way, I like that the bridge of his ship has the green LCARs, so that just that visual indicator that you know which ship you're on. It's just like a little neat idea, I think. But I guess he was jealous. It's kind of like that Tellarite like pridefulness and stubbornness, and he wanted to have the more prestigious job, and for some reason moving their ship closer was gonna represent that. And it just kind of makes me think I've been rooting for more Tellarites. I want more Tellarite representation, damn it. And I see this and I'm like, oh, Tellarites kind of suck.
Well, my reaction was all Starfleet captains apparently are idiots in this, because we've seen
the California class captains. Yeah, like they all have a chip on their shoulder. They're all like, I got to prove myself. I can't let my crew embarrass me.
Yeah,
I
I suppose
to be fair, the first Tellarite we ever saw kind of sucked.
I guess.
His name Gav.
But
What a jerk.
you want to talk about just like the vessels getting moist when the that cloud of terraform goo comes out and gets sucked up the tractor beam and gets onto both ships.
I did like that the mechanics of that actually made some sort of sense, that you could rip off a whole plate, that ripping it off would let stuff leak out, and that the tractor beam would actually just pull the stuff right onto your ship. I was like, yeah, we didn't need to do any sort of weird muon flow bullshit at all. It all made perfect sense. I was quietly pleased with how elegant that was.
The visual representation of it with the tractor beams, pulling the stuff to the ships, all worked really well. I do continue to enjoy the animation on this show, and the terraforming effect was cool, where things turn into ice and crystals and rock and plants. And of course, this is like the worst time ever to like show how insubordinate you are. And this is when Boimler chooses to pour a cup of coffee into Commander Ransom's lap. He's just like, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
This is like his sad timing during the talent show when he got ripped a new one.
I do have to say, I wonder, would Mariner ever actually do that to somebody without a really good reason?
I don't think so, but
I mean, she was drunk and she cut up Boimler's leg, but I don't think that was intentional.
That was an accident.
Yeah, that was an accident.
This was straight up on purpose.
Yeah, so he's actually worse than Mariner when he tries to be bad.
He's bad at being bad.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I think it's a scene that's coming up had one of my favorite lines in it from Tendi as the Coral is like closing in on she and what's his name?
Yeah, the damn you beautiful Coral with her.
Damn this gorgeous Coral.
Yeah.
Before that, there is this one cool little moment that to me it's very important that they put these beats in here, like these little like Starfleet being Starfleet doing like heroic stuff or something. But we see Commander Billups, the chief engineer. We don't really know this guy. He's just kind of boring. Looks like Jeff Foxworthy, but he finds like an injured crew member in the corridor while like these vines or whatever is being terraformed is like coming up the corridor, and he grabs this guy up and escorts him out of there and throws up the emergency force field. And they cut away from it pretty quick, but I just like those little Starfleet beats that they sprinkle in. It would be hard for me to enjoy the show if they didn't remind me that there's Starfleet from time to time.
See, I took that as nobody's actually dying here, so don't get too worried or upset, kind of statement. That didn't they sort of do that with the zombies as well? That they kind of want to reassure people that no, we're not actually killing people here.
I don't think anyone's died on the show yet, even though they do kind of tease it later with Lieutenant O'Connor. I like that they remind us that Mariner is like a really sharp cat. She's on top of her shit, knows what's going on when the terraforming is going on, and she can like suspect it a little bit where she's like, wait, like the humidity's changing, the temperature's fluctuating, or something weird is going down. But there is another cool Rutherford moment when we're seeing all these weird environmental changes on the ship. We see like the cyborg vision from his Vulcan implant when he's like running through the corridor. It's like targeting like obstacles to, I guess, maneuver around or something. It's like a little cool action beat. The show with the animated budget, it can do a slightly more heightened action than we would get in the live action stuff, and it's not jarring. It still kind of fits with the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, it's true.
And we also get cool visuals like the ships with all that weird multicolored. It looks. Oh, you know what it looks like is Metamorpho from DC Comics. It was basically a man who can turn into all kinds of weird vegetables or minerals or whatever.
He's got Plastic Man type powers, but he also is kind of a little bit more amorphous and weirdly colorful than Plastic Man. So yeah.
But yeah, the engineering section is flooded, and Tendi is stuck with O'Connor trapped behind the gorgeous Coral. It is kind of neat how they animated it, and this is where they're heart to heart, where he admits that like, yeah, I didn't actually know how to ascend. I was just being a jerk. And we also get the little pink glowy explosives that, for some reason, the terraform goo creates. There's a little nod to the animated series, maybe, to make like the weird object pink. Like as many out of place things are pink in the animated series. But I guess Tendi declares that they're friends now because they were both being jerks.
And again, that's what I love Tendi for when he reveals that he basically had been letting her feel this horrible guilt all this time. Her reaction is completely different than almost anyone else's, but is still perfectly in keeping with who she is. And I really like that about it, that they were able to walk that line between being completely unpredictable and yet it all makes sense when you look at it from Tendi's point of view. So very nicely done.
And she also is the one who frees them. She rescues them by using the convenient pink explosive to blow a hole in the wall, and they escape.
Yes, apparently having all these explosives go off near the warp core is not a problem.
I would be concerned about the warp core getting terraformed and having like a warp core breach or something, but luckily that didn't happen. But unluckily, a piece of debris is about to fall on Tendi, and O'Connor does the heroic cliche thing, pushes her out of the way, takes the hit himself. And the show
that's the same shtick I did in my Star Trek role-playing game with a couple of PCs a month ago.
Well, apparently, one of your players is in the lower decks writers' room.
Apparently,
they're leaking his plot points.
Yes,
I kind of thought that O'Connor was going to die here. I guess just like the way that they hold on Tendi's reaction, like in the heat of the moment, it just kind of tricked me. I was like,
yeah.
Oh, I guess they're actually going to kill a person. I guess I'm supposed to be sad right now.
Yeah.
Would you say your eyes got moist?
No. But if they did, that'd be a perfectly fine, normal reaction, and there's nothing wrong with describing it with that word.
My eyes were as moist as a Duncan Hines cake.
Neat. Let's talk about, again, what I said was my favorite stuff with the mother-daughter stuff when we see Captain Freeman and Ensign Mariner side by side. You do kind of notice similarities in how they're animated, how they're drawn. They actually look like mother and daughter when you have them side by side, and she's being so critical, which I know is something like a lot of people relate to with their parents about how like, oh, everything you do is either wrong or not quite right, and they got to point out to you what you're doing. Like, shouldn't you be using a pointier rock?
Yeah. No, I began to at least say, okay, now I can see why Mariner hates, or at least acts like she hates her mom so much. That helped at least balance the equation, though I still think it's a pretty awful equation. But from their relationship is bad. But I
want to know why. I wish they would have teased a little bit of why. And that's as far as this stuff goes, that's my only complaint.
Yeah, there could have been something simple like, you've been like this ever since Terok 7 or something, whatever, and just some hint that there was an event.
Or just like add to the mystery a little bit, but still reveal something at the same time. I also think this is the first time we saw not a turbo lift shaft. This is the first time we saw a Jeffries tube in the show.
No, but Rutherford was climbing around in them.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We saw the interior. Never mind. I take that back. This is the first time we saw we saw someone come out of the port like this before. I don't know why it looks different. I guess because the red alert lighting, which I do love, like the Tron Legacy style, like red alert lighting that they have.
I do love that they ran multiple red alert lights through all the Jeffries tubes.
Yeah. Well, in case Rutherford has been in there for a week, he needs to know.
Yeah, I suppose so.
They get to the transporter room, and they're going to use they're going to tech the tech and use Parazine gas, which was the convenient science construct of the episode that they made up. That basically undoes what the terraform goo does.
And involves the navigational deflector because, of course, it does.
You got to use the deflector.
I will say that I'm pretty sure I haven't double checked it, but the graphic, the oculogram for the transporter console is the actual one from Next Generation, I believe. Looking at it, I remember the layout well enough that I'm pretty sure they just copied it wholesale as opposed to making their own version of it.
Yeah. I also see it has a 47 on there, so the magical Star Trek number 47 is present and accounted for. But I think you're probably right, Brian. You're pretty on top of it with that stuff, and I know that Mike Okuda did help them with the show to recreate all that stuff. And I like here where we see like the first moment of I guess like mother and daughter liking each other when Mariner is like happy, or I'm sorry, when Captain Freeman is happy that Mariner is, oh, you actually like read my briefing and knew what was going on with the stuff and figured out how to fix it. And I like that little like shared moment between the two of them. We get a little bit of this.
I think Mom wants to like Mariner. It's just she wants Mariner to be who she wants her to be, and so that's getting in the way of her actually liking Mariner as in who she is. And apparently, Mariner's only way of coping with that that disconnect is to just drive Mom nuts all the time. So,
yeah. They flood the gas, they radiate it with the deflector, and I like when they have like that montage of all the different parts of the ship are now like unterraformed. They show the conference room, and they have Vindome, the Bolian from last week. Like he pops his head up from the table, and like we know he's safe for whatever reason. Is like that's little corny stuff like that. Like it warms my heart in like that's kind of like a wholesome way. That after 3 seasons of Star Trek, where it's just like constant like murder and people getting eyes ripped out and the stuff that we've gotten in Discovery and Picard, and I do enjoy those shows. I am so glad to have all these Star Trek shows on the air. I'm so thrilled to be watching Discovery and Picard, but
they don't reflect some of those elements of TNG and past Treks that are a little bit more wholesome and sometimes they're a little lurid.
This show has been very much a breath of fresh air for me.
Yeah,
and it's refreshing.
Yeah, they don't have the goo recede and show corpses lying everywhere.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't be funny if they did it. Like the comedy would not work.
Yeah,
if they went that dark with it.
So, and that's the difference. I think
where they should go to the Mirror Universe and do an episode where it is a super messed up dark comedy.
What would Mirror Universe Boimler be like? He's actually he's like the captain of their ship.
I think he'd be the same anal retentive, detail oriented, but he'd be like commanding and demanding of everyone else live up to his expectations.
Or what if he's still a dweeb in the Mirror Universe, and then Boimler is so disappointed that he's like, even in like the opposite universe, I still suck. Like how could that be?
It's like the Xander duplicates in Buffy. They're both kind of alike. They're just both doofuses, the evil and good one. They also did in the Star Trek Mirror Universe comics where they covered TNG. They somewhat showed that because we saw Barclay. I think.
Oh yeah, he's literally the whipping boy in the Mirror Universe. He's Brian. That comic opens up with Barclay. He works in engineering on the Stargazer under Picard's command, and he's like literally being like whipped by the chief engineer to like run around and like replace the dilithium crystals and whatever.
But he also does a Julius Caesar and does a literal backstab before the story is out. So
we got to talk about
here we get to the romantic moment of the episode.
Yeah, it was a little weird that they just like start kissing, but like, well, Tindy's an Orion. She probably has like that heightened sexuality where she's probably like,
plus
hey,
Tindy either
I like you, let's make out.
Yeah, and Tendi is all or nothing. You know, she's either you're just my friend or we're gonna get naked. I mean, it's all or nothing with her. So,
but yeah, it's like the kiss was so magical. He begins to float in the air and turn into Dr. Manhattan. The animation on this was so cool. I love just insane, colorful stuff. The Kirby dots. Anyone out there who's into comic book art knows what I'm talking about. When he's just like bouncing around in there and just like spouting all this insane stuff, like time is meaningless. I can see everything. And
yeah, they kind of played up the notion of like ascending to godhood, which happens often enough in Star Trek, that it wouldn't necessarily be this awe-inspiring, beautiful moment, but kind of a terrifying, chaotic shock to the system.
It reminds me of like Charlie X when Charlie was like, I want to stay. It's kind of like that, where it's like, I don't know what's going on with this guy, but I'm kind of like scared and worried about him. And just like, I thought the visuals were stunning enough when he makes like that big energy bird thing form around him, and he opens the the portal and sees the koala bear that the universe is centered on the back
I
of.
like him name checking Space Lincoln before that. That was amazing.
Yes. But it just like like this only works if like you're so batshit that it's just like so absurd and crazy. And yeah, like the and just like the dialogue here where he's like, the universe is balanced on the back of a koala. Why is he smiling? What does he know?
It was very funny, but I kind of wanted that to be the place where we stick a big Great Bird of the Galaxy reference in. I think that would have been you could have had, I see the Great Bird of the Galaxy, you know, right before.
But they just done Great Bird of the Galaxy last week.
So it could be funny in both places. The context is very different. So it would help explain what was going on with the statue and stuff in the previous episode.
Yeah, well, maybe when he turned into that bird thing, maybe that was what the great birds of the galaxy are.
Yes.
But yeah, the Ascension stuff, it was so wacky, and I don't really think it harms anything. Like, it's just like this visualization that this guy saw when he was turned into a godlike alien, which is a thing that happens sometimes in Star Trek.
Yes.
I don't interpret this as like the Star Trek universe is actually balanced on the back of a giant koala bear. Like, calm down. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, this is supposed to be beyond our understanding. What you saw is a glimpse of like Q level type shit. So check your stuff.
I was fine with it. Certainly, I mean, we've seen the Enterprise basically make that little Ascension baby in Emergence, which was a dumb episode, but it is absolutely canon. So this feels, no weirder than that. Mm-hmm. That this guy's at least trying to do some sort of weird higher life form thing, at least on some level, even if it's kind of a gag or a break. I did like earlier, I forgot to mention, we see Tendi finally lose it and get upset with something when she finally gets fed up with him earlier in the choral scene. Isn't that like the first time that she's actually been unhappy?
Yeah, that's the first time we see her. Well, she was unhappy when she was overworked last week, but it was the first time we saw her like overtly angry.
Yeah.
Hostile.
Yeah, where she's really, really upset with giving up on the world around her on some sort of level or something. So I thought that was noteworthy that something finally pushed her too far and broke the endless optimism.
Well, finally we have the USS Merced is just fucked beyond any hope, and they have to beam that crew onto the generation ship that we've already established is not really a generation ship. So they rescue dumbass Captain Durango and his crew. And then Freeman and Mariner, they smile at each other and then they hug. And then they do that kind of funny cartoony thing where they're like, what am I doing? And then they stop and go back to like having their backs turned to each other. But I like that. It's a very tropey but also effective way to explain that, like, yes, there is a lot of love and sentiment between the two of them. And neither one of them is handling it very well right now.
I didn't notice it at the time, but looking back on it, there's something. Freeman always wants her daughter back. She wants her daughter, and she wants her daughter to be a specific way, the perfect daughter that she has in her mind. And at that moment, it felt. Now that I think about it, why does she break off the hug? Why does she find the hug weird? She's got what she wanted all the time. For this moment, she's got her daughter back. Now, I could totally see Mariner saying, oh, no, I can't be nice to mom. I can't be nice to Nom. And
we're trying to get that in the next scene before the Admiral comes in. I think Captain first of all, it's just kind of like that funny visual gag. But we don't know the full story of like their resentment between one another. And I think she's like, is like, no, I'm mad at you. You were just calling me Carol when we were rappelling down the turbo lift shaft.
What did Freeman want her daughter to do instead of what she's doing?
She wanted her to
anything
transfer,
bigger
because she's tired. She's tired of her being insubordinate, so she wanted her.
I was trying to remember because Brian said she wants her to be the perfect daughter, and I'm like, it feels more like she just wants her to be less like not insubordinate.
Well, she's the picking on the rock and every other little thing. No, she's got this very perfect idea of what the perfect Mariner should be, and she's going to keep nibbling away at Mariner until she gets that perfect Mariner.
In the turbo lift, she says that you keep acting like a child, so I keep treating you like a child.
Yeah. And mind you, this creates this horrible circular feedback loop between the two of them. But I guess this goo, when they gas the goo, it switches off. It reverts everything back to its original shape and form. Is that right?
Only way I think it works is if the goo is not so much transforming matter, but it's like transforming itself on the matter. I don't know. It's like it doesn't make sense because like how does like the gas and the radiation reverse it? But then how does a transporter combine Neelix and Tuvix's soul into one person? So it's just kind of like the price of admission with Star Trek is you have to buy the weird sci-fi technology sometimes.
Because it has to be reversing the structures on the ship. Otherwise, the ship would, when all the goo went away, would be...
I guess it's smart goo. It's like intelligent goo. It like understands like the...
Yeah, they might be... Yeah, it is a designed goo. It's not some accidental thing. So it could have an undo button, and the gas triggers the undo button.
The gas is the control, and the radiation from the deflector is the Z key.
Yeah, sure. Something. It makes sense that it would have an undo button. If it was designed, it would be a good safety system to include in something this
smart
aggressive.
Terraformers, these colonists. Too better they didn't build better cryo tubes.
Yeah, well, I kept expecting them to turn up.
But yeah, they clean up the ship. There's some Gorn eggs with that cleanup sequence, by the way. I do like that they show them cleaning up from time to time, like when they were removing the graffiti last week. But
yeah, I'm sure they just, as a sort of statement of show's philosophy, want to show anytime anybody is doing a bit of blue collar stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, the medial tasks. The less glorious work, but someone's got to do it. What we were talking about a second ago with Freeman actually like being more affectionate to Mariner. Like we see that when she does like the cliche mom thing of trying to clean something on her kid's face. And Mariner's all pissed off and doesn't like it. And she does seem kind of childish there, but it's kind of cute. I kind of like it.
No, I like that part. It was just when you pointed out her not wanting the hug earlier on doesn't seem to jive with this part where she's actually wanting the classic mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah, she says that. She says we could be a mommy-daughter team.
Yeah,
I need you as one of my senior officers. I need you by my side. And Mariner is very uncomfortable with that.
Yes.
And when the admiral comes in, it's kind of obvious. Okay, well, she's going to do something to this admiral. He's pinning medals on them. She's going to do something to him to get demoted. But I do like this little moment where we see like that connection between Mariner and Freeman when they're both trying to make fun of the joke here is that the way that he says sensors.
Yeah. And
Captain Freeman is a lot smarter in the way that she's amused by it because she just says like, oh yeah, you picked up something on your sensors. And she like says it back to him. Yeah. Whereas like, but that's where we see like she's similar to Mariner, but then we see how they're different, and that like Mariner is like, oh, why won't you just like call him out on how stupid it is to say that?
Well, again, I think Mariner's trying to get herself demoted at that point because she doesn't want the mother-daughter thing that was just laid out in front of her. So she's like, well, I can act bad to mom and mom won't demote me. But if I act bad to the admiral's going to want to know, what did you do to that lieutenant for acting up? And she's going to have to say, well, I demoted her because that's the only thing that's going to make the admiral happy. Now,
we get the circular thing where the episode ends like it began with her like embarrassing her mom in front of another Starfleet officer.
Yeah. Now, was the admiral Vassar or whatever sounded exactly
Vassery.
Like, huh?
His name was Admiral Vassery.
Vassery. Yeah, he sounded exactly like Kelsey Grammer. Was that not him? There was just a sound alike?
I don't know. I thought it sounded like the voice actor, Joe DiMaggio, who played Bender on Futurama, but does a ton of voice work. To me, it sounded like one of the voices he does sometimes. But I actually looked it up yesterday because I was curious, and it wasn't posted yet who the voice actor was. So we'll have to wait to find out on that one.
Okay, because I even figured it might be the Kelsey Grammer character from the Time Loop episode, but I don't think that was his name, was it?
And he wasn't bald.
Well, I mean, it's
If he
been
didn't
quite a
say
few
stupid
years.
stuff, he didn't say stupid stuff like, "Are you making fun of me?"
True. So
Uh,
well, we don't really get a lot of what he was. We get a little snapshot. He says like what, 3 lines. So
Yeah, that's true. We get that final scene on the end, just a little tag on the episode of Mariner explaining to Boimler that she's been demoted and she's happy about it because she didn't like all that extra work and extra responsibility. And he's offended. He's like, "How could you just throw that away? That's all I care about is being promoted." But I like that she's friendly to him. She's like, "Well, here, I got you the key card to the senior officer replicator, and now you can go have your macaroni with breading." And happy Boimler.
which seems like
hopefully Commander Ransom is not there at the replicator also, because he's probably mad that you poured coffee on his crotch. But
yeah, I again, it's like, is that really what he wants out of being a senior officer? Is just replicator access? Is that? It seems. I thought he wanted more than that.
I think he does, but I think in the heat of the moment, that was that sounded yummy to his tummy.
I suppose, and it might just be nice. Oh, Mariner's being nice to me. Oh, I'm not going to mess this up. So nice to not be picked on by Mariner.
And speaking of like angry Tindy, we also get the joke here of like, she says, like, I'm just gonna have to learn to accept that some people don't like me. And Rutherford is like, "Yeah, that's good, because there's probably several people on the ship that don't like you." And then she's like, "What? Who are they? Tell me who these people are. I demand that you tell me."
I still feel that Tendi, I feel like maybe I'm just projecting that Tendi came away with this learning a lesson. I feel like the Tendi we have at the end of this episode is a smarter, more aware Tendi than we had at the beginning of the episode.
Maybe.
I mean, she actually says, "Oh, I guess I need to learn this. This is my lesson." She's maybe not
kind of joke that the punchline of the joke is that she hasn't learned. But I think that, she's in the process of learning at the very least.
Well,
yes, that much credit.
And knowing who these people are doesn't mean she's going to necessarily try like mad to try to convince them to like her. She just wants to know who they are, which I think almost anyone would be curious to know who in the office building doesn't like them if they didn't know that information.
I am not someone who's bothered if people don't like me. It is like annoying and inconvenient sometimes and can be frustrating, but I've learned that sometimes you got to accept that and not everyone like you.
But if you ran into somebody who knew who didn't like you, wouldn't you be curious as to could you tell me their name?
Yeah, and I think if you are someone who is like going to stress out about it all the time, like that must be a very stressful life.
Yeah. So no, I like that. I'm not entirely convinced. Did Mariner learn anything? I'm less certain.
She learned
that her mom is okay sometimes.
Yeah, she bonded with her mom a little bit, but not much. There wasn't a ton of growth there.
Yeah, well, I mean, there might have been a lot. We don't know. It's easy to say that the only reason she acts up in front of the admiral is because she wants to be demoted. It might not be that is she going to keep making mom's life a living hell or not? Or is it just that she just wanted to get out from under the rank? And now,
well, I think the main reason she wanted out of the job was because she was nervous about, she's kind of been on the outs with her mom for so long. I think we can assume that she was probably like uncomfortable with like, what if we do get along, and like, well, what if I mess it up again? Or like, it's just kind of scary. Change is scary. I don't want to change to that. I can't do it. I can't handle it. I want to go back to normal.
Well,
reaction.
Yeah, I need to see how they interact in the next episode to know whether or not she learned something. If they're nicer, if Mariner is nicer to the Freeman in the next episode, then she did learn something. If she's just as mean, then apparently she didn't.
I mean, I think that the way that the show is styled is it's going to be more that old
reset
school
button.
TV, reset to the status quo. I think the changes like that are going to come like gradually. I think there will probably be multiple stories of like Mariner learning to get along with her mom, and it'll probably like be a very slow burn of like that actually
some sort of degree of notching down the degree of disrespect from a 10 to an 8 would probably be sufficient for me.
Sure, yeah. Well, I do need to like knock out these Gorn eggs real quick because we are low on time, but fortunately there were not as many as there typically are. But I'll just start off with the Merced herself, the sister California class starship. also named after a city in California. And this one has a blue stripe layout instead of the yellow stripe layout. That Mike McMahon's explained that the reason for that yellow striping on the Cerritos is because it's an engineering ship. That's why they install communication relays on that planet in the first episode. Whereas here, the Merced, it's a science ship. So they're using the uniform color divisions for the California class ships. And again, this one is named after real life location, Merced, California. The life goo that we talked about earlier, that is very similar to the Genesis device from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Makes me wonder if this goo used proto-matter or not, because it does seem to be like a little bit more effective. So too bad Carol and David didn't have access to this goo. The Captain Durango was a Tellarite, first introduced in the original series, the first one we've seen on Star Trek Lower Decks. And Tellarites also feature in Enterprise and Discovery. The ascension that Lieutenant O'Connor goes on to, when Tendi explains that to Rutherford, he mentions, like the higher being like Q or the Traveler, two characters established in the Next Generation. Like I mentioned before, we've seen basically like characters turn into gods before on Star Trek, basically turn into these non-corporeal energy beings. We have Will Decker. Yeah. I always say the wrong one. In the motion picture, when he merges with V'ger, we have John Doe from Transfigurations. We have Amanda Rogers was a human who became a Q. Wesley Crusher became a Traveler with the Traveler.
I liked how what's his name, was it Rutherford called him the Traveler earlier in the episode.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, he's like a Q or the Traveler.
We have Kess also from Star Trek.
I'd forgotten about Kess. You're right.
And
I forgot about it.
Another big one that I know like Dave has not seen. It's an episode of Star Trek he hasn't seen, so I'm not going to spoil it here.
I assume this is a DS9 thing, which I at least know vaguely. And it's okay. You can confirm. It won't hurt me. I know about Ben.
I would just rather not say it.
All right. Fair enough. I appreciate it.
But we get that mention to Space Lincoln from the Savage Curtain that Brian picked up on. When Mariner is in the conference room and she's kind of poking fun at them, she's like, what are you doing in here? Like debating about the Prime Directive. That was a big stab at Next Generation episodes like Pen Pals, where like they stand around talking about the morality of how to interpret the Prime Directive. The painting in Mariner's quarters. This is my favorite Gorn egg this week. There's a painting that hangs above her bed that is actually kind of a slightly different version of a painting that we saw in Star Trek The Next Generation, in the episode The Bonding, where that the woman dies and Worf is like trying to comfort her kid. But it's very similar. It's like a different aspect ratio. It's like the same painting, but it's like 4:3 on TNG, and then it's like 16:9 on Lower Decks. I like it. And the poker game, clearly referencing the poker games of Next Generation. When Tendi is trying to go all spiritual and get O'Connor back into his groove to ascend. I don't know if this is intentional or not. She's got like this weird hat on her head. And the only other time I've seen something like that before in Star Trek was in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. The Vulcans that were working on repairing the Bird of Prey were upgrading it or whatever they were doing have a very similar thing on their head.
I'm quite certain that was intentional. That's not an accident.
It just seems weird because I didn't like think of these guys as like spiritual or anything, but maybe they're like Vulcan science monks. That's kind of cool, actually. I'm gonna believe that now. Actually, when she like covers them with those bugs or whatever, she says that was a Temerian technique for ascending. Reference to I think one of Dave's favorite people, the Temerians from Darmok.
Yep. They've missed their opportunities over the decades to do some sort of return to those guys.
I think we'll see him again with all the Star Trek that's being made. Boimler, when he kind of is going evil and says he'll report to the bridge and give them exactly what they deserve, he was overheard on his comm badge and panics and says, that was just Moriarty. I guess he was insinuating he was playing on the holodeck with Moriarty, who we know from Data and Geordi's Sherlock Holmes adventures in Next Generation. The static on the view screen when Captain Durango is experiencing the terraforming effect on his ship, they kind of use the same static pattern on the view screen that we saw in the Next Generation episode Parallels, where there's that alternate universe Riker who's like, my timeline is totally fucked. The Borg are everywhere. We're all doomed. And it's like,
the Riker from 2020.
Yes, the Riker from 2020. And then my second favorite pairing of Gorn eggs is from cleaning up the ship. They're actually using the vacuum backpacks that we saw something similar in the Short Trek episode of The Trouble with Edward when they're vacuuming up. And they also have the Spock goggles that you use to look at the Medusa.
Oh, yeah, the Spock goggles.
So is there in truth no beauty?
Yes.
So that was cool to see that. And the medals that Admiral Fatheree pins on Mariner and Freeman, they're not exact, but they're extremely similar to I think it's the Medal of Honor that they give to the Discovery crew in the finale of Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Will You Take My Hand? The Admiral actually says, Saru, you're the first Kelpian to be awarded the Medal of Honor. So I think all these people are getting a Medal of Honor. But yeah, it looks very similar.
It does.
Yeah.
And of course, the Admiral saying sensors, that is the way that Leonard Nimoy said it when he played Spock, to kind of make Spock sound more alien. And we also heard Tim Russ and Julian Blaylock and Ethan Peck, a lot of the actors who have come later to play Vulcans, use that same pronunciation. And that's everything. So that's it for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 1, Episode 4, Moist Vessel. But be sure to comment. Let us know what you think, how you feel about this one. And tune in next week. We'll be live at 7:30 p.m. to discuss Episode 5. And everyone should totally, if you're watching us live, go check out Starfleet Boy After Dark. We're going to hang out over there.
It's going to get moist.
Yeah, let's see who has the moist vessel. Like, that sounds really dirty. And it's not going to be that weird. But that's it. Live long and prosper, y'all.